Yeah, I should.
If you go live after.
Yeah, let's go live. See you again.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Saikat. How are you?
Thanks for asking. So, welcome everyone to another show of ours under YOUNGO Energy Working Group, which is one of the youth constituency of United Nations Framework for Climate Change. And in this open dialogue, in this open era of communication, we do a live show in terms of not too much technicalities, but also understanding how things work on the ground with fabulous team, with fabulous speakers, guests, and today we have a guest all the way from Canada, and we are meeting here in Lisbon Future Dialogue 2026. We also met last year in Lisbon Future Dialogue. We'll speak about it. But in this great podcast area from GWEC, thanks a lot, GWEC, for providing us the infrastructure, first of all. So we will speak about energy infrastructure, we'll speak about students, but first of all, we'll speak about exactly why we are here. So without further ado, Helen, would you like to just introduce yourself to our viewers and how you came up with Student Energy Festival?
For sure. So my name is Helen Watts. I'm the Executive Director of Student Energy. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast. I followed the work of YOUNGO even before there was kind of dedicated energy working group for a long time, and now I've been super happy to keep following the work and support this growing movement of young people who care about energy. And that's really kind of my entry point into student energy as well. I started when I was just a recent undergraduate graduate student. So I just finished my first degree, my only degree. I was looking for work, and as a young person, your job options are often quite limited. You don't have 5-10 years of experience. I didn't necessarily feel like I had the qualifications to work in energy, but I saw a lot about youth in the job description. And that immediately resonated with me. I decided to apply for this job. I started with a team of 2, and over the years we built this movement. And I think what we really served to prove with student energy growing the way that it did is that young people care deeply about being involved in work that feels meaningful and impactful. And a lot of young people see energy as a space to do that kind of work. I think they see a lot of the problems in our current energy system. They see how it affects people's lives, it affects our planet, and they want to be part of building something different. So that's the work that I do now with Student Energy. We work with a network of 50,000 young people in over 130 countries around the world. We work on everything from supporting students to start their first 5-kilowatt solar PV system, all the way through to getting young people into virtual internship opportunities with organizations like GWEC, Sustainable Energy for All, NL, so that they can also build career experience and make sure that this isn't just a youth thing. It's something that really stays with them for the long term. They can actually build careers in this space.
Wow. That is a lot, of course, and we are really glad that this conversation happens to be there for not just for the youth, but also the students, because as we know that students are the main pillar. They often will be told that we are the leaders for tomorrow. I guess we are the leaders for today. We're not for leaders for tomorrow. We are like starting to drive everything. We are driving the changes. We are making our voice really heard on the table. And I think people like you who are giving us the platform is really fantastic. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
For this podcast, it goes like a conversation, not a like question answer round. It's just a flow of conversation. So, what do you like? According to you, you always, you're always into podcasts. You're always into like a fantastic panels and everywhere. People ask you different kind of questions, which is really relatable to you as well. But sometimes you feel that okay, there should be a question which has been never been asked. Like you want to share something and it was never been asked just because of it's not framed in the AI sometimes, or maybe it's not framed in your mind that okay, it can be a potential discussion point.
Totally.
What do you have in your mind?
Yeah, well, one question that I really love that I don't really get to ask enough, and I don't personally get asked it very often, and it's a bit of like a potentially controversial one, but I think it gets to some really interesting conversations, is what do you wish that the youth movement would do less? Like, where do we feel like we're not using the right tactics or we're being too disruptive? And it depends who you ask, right? Like, you can ask somebody who's part of a very traditional, powerful institution of energy. They're going to have a very different answer than somebody who's, running an organization like the Global Renewables Alliance or is leading the YOUNGO Energy Working Group. And I think the variety of answers that you get from a question like that is really telling to how youth continue to be perceived in our spaces, but also what tactics we might genuinely be leaving on the table that we could be using. I think something that I always get like a little bit tired of in the spaces, in like panels or conversations, is just kind of the same questions again and again, where they kind of serve to lead you to a place where you're just talking about like how important it is to engage youth. Like if I have to talk about engaging youth again, I swear, I'm going to start charging for it. Fun student energy that way, but I really think we need to talk more about is like the practical tools and actions that we need, and not just like ambitions and commitments. Ambitions and commitments are still really important. I mean, like spaces like COP, spaces like the UN, they need to exist because, ultimately, like we're working in a space where countries and institutions are choosing to participate. Like we can't, let's really get our litigation act together. We can't really hold a lot of these institutions accountable for much that they decide not to do. But at the same time, we have often in these spaces people with like over a decade of experience, even like young people, young leaders who've been in this space for a while. We've learned a lot in that time. Are we actually working to think critically about the like tools, frameworks, like what has really impacted the way that I do my work that I could share with others, so that they can leave this space with something new in their roster? So that we're not just continually having the same conversations, we're actually bringing value, we're offering value, and we're adding to our own toolboxes, and we're able to like build on each other's work to go farther faster. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer to your really great question of like what should we talk about more. But like that's actually, it's inspired a lot of the research that we've done. Like for a long time, I was just so tired of being asked like, how do young people feel about this? Or what do young people think about the energy transition? And I'm like, well, I can't speak for an entity that ultimately is also not a homogenous entity. Young people think very different things about energy. And I realized, I was coming to these events where people would talk about, the Bloomberg New Energy Finance Global Outlook, or they would talk about the IEA World Energy Outlook. They'd be bringing up all of these kind of sources of like data and perceived truth about the energy system, but we were still talking in like the vaguest terms about what young people want to see. And so I decided on stage one day, which is like kind of wild in retrospect, but I decided one day to announce that we were doing the first Global Youth Energy Outlook. That was before we had a plan, that was before we had partners, we didn't have funding yet. And I stood on stage and I decided we're going to do this. We're going to actually, talk to tens of thousands of young people around the world. We're going to bring in regional coordinators who actually understand the nuances of conversation, the languages in their own regions, and we're going to build a report, the first of its kind, that actually shares what young people think about energy. So there was that, and that became really useful. And we kind of built on that and kept doing more. We realized, okay, well, people keep asking us why young people aren't applying to energy jobs. Let's do a report. Let's figure out, let's talk to young people. Like, are we just talking to the same young people, or are we actually getting out into our communities and asking young people, like, why aren't you excited about working in renewables? Or why doesn't energy feel like a pathway that's right for you? And so we found out through that the biggest barrier to young people getting into clean energy jobs is not skills, it's not qualifications, it's not even networks. It's actually awareness of what an energy job is and where those energy jobs are. And that was really important because then they were able to go to governments, institutions, industry, and explain to them that you're not telling your story well enough. And you need to be working with organizations like YOUNGO, like Student Energy, like the European Youth Energy Network, the SU7 Youth Constituency, to tap into youth communities where we have influence, we have trust, we can tell those stories, and get people excited. I'll do a very quick plug and then back over to you. Very quick plug, kind of a report that I'm super excited about that's coming out this month. Like again, we get kind of nerdy about this stuff, but it is really, I think it's very exciting. A report we have coming out this month was, I felt I was kind of speaking into the void a little bit when I would tell industry and governments, I want you to build better, we call it like enabling environments. We want better enabling environments for young people to move into clean energy jobs. But when we kept the conversation at that level, it made it really easy for us to get responses that were ultimately kind of passive. Like, yeah, we agree. We do need to do better. We need to create better enabling environment. And we never got down into the nuts and bolts of like, what does that actually mean in practice? So we decided to work with the Clean Energy Materials Empowering People's Initiative, with Canada, with the European Commission, and we built the first report of its kind that brings in examples from around the world of policies and programs that are very effectively and tangibly getting people into clean energy jobs. And those are programs from like Indonesia with their Patriot Energy program that's training young like energy champions in communities, in rural communities, all the way through to like the internship covenant in the Netherlands, which has worked with a coalition of wind companies to commit to have industry actually commit and invest in young people moving through training and certification programs in their companies and accessing long-term employment. So we were like, okay, let's create this like curated look. You basically have a menu of options now. Any country, any industry can look at this report and look at the different characteristics of these programs and kind of like mix and match and pick a program that works for them and makes sense in their context, adapt it. Also look at where there are gaps. Like we found most of those programs weren't actually including any targets or equity-centered design. So there was no actual like strategy or approach to like getting more women into the sector, even though we talk about it all the time. So those kinds of pieces are ones that I want us to talk about more, and I want us to commit to actually creating as tools for us to use, because having been in the space now for years, like I know you feel the same, like we're just kind of talking to the same people about the same stuff
Over and over again.
over and over again. Lisbon Dialogue feels really different. We talk a lot about storytelling and communications, and that feels really fresh. My big kind of push these days is to just continue talking about like actual work, actual actions we can take, provide people with tools and offers of like value that can make their work move faster and more tangibly.
I think you were, in a way, you are 99% right. Exactly that you are also like, organizing a lot of events and you're doing a lot of, outreach for the people whom you are representing for student energy. I'm doing the same for energy working group so that I can bring most of the opportunities and most of the narratives on the table for them. Sometimes I also feel that, for example, we spoke about the workforce issue that is going on over a period of time. What exactly the issue is? What is the root cause analysis? And those analyses have not been done properly, I guess, in a proper manner. Just because I think if you see in a proper analytical perspective, when we go to ask the youth, like what exactly you want, we go to the same youth over and over again. Because if you see the proper strategic, in membership, or maybe you can see the supply chain of entirely getting all the survey or the data from those young people, we always tends to find the same path, right? And that is the reason it's always the same answer. Just because we are getting the same people, we are getting the same environment. I feel we have to change the strategy of getting it onto the ground by changing the area, changing the region, changing the people, exactly the same people. Trying to find a way, but do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Like, how do we actually widen the tent of like who we're talking to and the people that people are hearing from? Because like even still to this day, even though I would argue that, like compared to when I first started in this space, I was often the only young person in a conference. Now that actually isn't the case, which is great. It depends on the conference, but for the most part, like I'm there with other young people, and that's amazing. But again, it is like kind of the same young people. And that comes down to aspects of like resources and access to power, access to pre-existing networks. So how do we like widen the tent so that people are hearing from a greater diversity, more representative body of young people, and also redistribute like the opportunities that come from being able to go into those spaces as well. So that again, like, if I'm going to a conference, it's not me and all of my friends that I've known for many years. It's like new people, it's new voices. We have the youth chief mentorship that comes from that space as well. So I think there's a very intentional approach to like in a conference or in-person setting that needs to happen. Like for example, for our International Student Energy Summit, we actually set targets for how many, what percentage of young people we accept to our summit have never been to a conference before. So typically, we started that in 2023 actually with the NYU Abu Dhabi Summit. And that was really effective. We managed to accept 40%, so almost half of all delegates who came to the summit have never been to a conference before. So we're like, it was a huge number. So we were able to really like help kind of just ensure that we're, again, not bringing the same people every time. We're redistributing resources. They're connecting young people who have been able to be quite successful in finding access to these spaces. But then you mentioned like surveying and, how do we actually like get more than the same people to answer every time? That was built into like the design of our global youth energy outlook, but it wasn't inexpensive. And I think that's where a lot of bigger institutions who want to tap into the knowledge of youth and the insights from youth, but aren't really willing to like acknowledge that does take a lot of capacity and a lot of resources. That's where that kind of tension happens. And you end up getting organizations that only want to pay like, a few $1,000s to a youth organization to do insights on a specific like topic of interest. And maybe they'll get like 100 responses, which is great, but it's 100 responses kind of from the same people because that organization doesn't have the resources they need to go out there. When we did the Global Youth Energy Outlook, we did make sure that we fundraise, and it wasn't easy, but it was also an easier time to fundraise. That was 2021, 2022. We fundraised so that we could actually afford to pay regional coordinators, like 2 per region, in Southeast Asia, in the MENA region, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Latam region, that we were able to actually recruit these kind of youth contractors essentially for this term of 12 months. We paid them an honorarium, we made sure that they had resources, and then we supported them with like our own time and capacity as an organization to train them on like how to develop like a youth dialogue in country or in region. They brought on an additional suite of ambassadors. Like it becomes this kind of ripple-on effect. But you need to be able to like actually have what you need to invest in that. And often like as youth organizations, we're really hard on ourselves with that. We're like, why can't we like do more? Why can't we reach further, reach wider? We're not operating with the same resources as larger, even just like a larger NGO. And that needs to be acknowledged because, I think it's a bit of a cycle of power that we also need to actively break. Like we as a youth organization collective, we need to stop accepting less for what ultimately it is a lot of work to do for other institutions, even though it feels like it gives us access to spaces of power. And I think like when we start to collectively as a movement say no and demand more, it's almost like, like a youth organization union in effect, we're able to then set a better bar for what we need to do our work effectively and what it actually takes to like reach beyond the usual suspects. That's where I think we'll really be able to change like who we're hearing from, how many people we're hearing from, and work with some like really robust data, insights, stories that can help us to do our work better. It was a very long answer, but
it's a discussion, and it's nice that you have some kind of points which are not being heard before. Just because, as I say, questions are always set. Similar questions over and over again.
Totally.
I feel the same about this literature as well. They have like different strategy. We spoke about misinformation, but also we spoke about how to create proper information, like solutions on the top of the problems. That's right. And also, as you said that it's not about just quantity. It's about the quality that we should move ahead, right?
Exactly.
And moreover, when you have provided your insights, I saw a kind of suggestions as well, like to the young people, like what they should do. So I think we always ask the non-youth perspective that what they should do with us. But let me just change the focus first time, right? So I'll change the focus towards the youth. As to the youth, right? As you are working with the youth for the youth, right? And there's a lot of narratives and information everywhere you can find about youth and what they're doing. According to you, when you are engaging globally, I'm not just talking about region, you're engaging globally. What should you tell the youth they should do in a manner they have not been doing till now? And you see that there is a gap. Because not many people tell us, because we always say about ourselves that we need this, we need that. But what you say that you have to do that. Like the youth has to follow a certain path, or maybe a suggestion from your side.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I'm going to answer like really honestly. There's 2 things. One is a little bit more abstract, and one is like very tangible thing that I think young people need to do more. The first one is better problem identification and like scoping your work better. In the last year, like for some reason, I just started getting invited to do a lot of, like to be on a lot of juries for youth awards, which is really interesting. I think there might be just like more youth awards right now. Anyway, it's a really cool experience because I kind of get to be on the back end and looking at all of these projects and looking at how these youth projects also talk about their own work. And my feedback, I feel like 9 times out of 10 is you need to scope this work better. And it's such a weird, like kind of boring piece of advice, but I think we get, like we're so impassioned as young people, and oftentimes when we get inspired by climate change, by like climate action or the energy transition, we're getting like exposed to the complexity of it all at once. And we want to do everything. We want to solve the gender gap. We want to close the energy access gap. We want to electrify communities, build livelihood opportunities. The kind of initiatives that are working to do all of those things, well, first of all, there's not a lot of them that are actually really effectively doing all of those things, but those are like multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar projects. Those are not ones that are like a starting point that's going to allow you to really build the traction and skills and like project development framework needed to keep you in the space. It's probably actually just going to really overwhelm you. You won't get the kind of support you need to do the project. Your communications won't be super clear. You'll get overwhelmed and demotivated by what is perceived as a lack of progress versus just scoping a project. Like start simple. Pick something really simple. Like we have projects that we've supported through our work where it's really about like for example, one of our guided projects we supported in Juja, just outside of Nairobi at the Jomo Kenyatta University. Our chapter there decided to go to the primary school that's like right around the corner and add a 5 kilowatt solar system to help with intermittent energy blackouts. Like this was a school that was already connected to the grid. The grid is like mostly, renewable powered electricity, but the blackouts were so intense that it was actually creating like an education problem for the students. It was also really expensive to access from the grid. So the school was actually quite a bit in debt, and was having to basically have a lot of teachers staying late and things like that. And it was basically this kind of complex problem that was solved by like a really simple solution. They didn't decide they were going to solve, the intermittent electricity access problem in even like the town of Juja. They decided we're going to start by installing a 5 kilowatt system at this specific school, help them like basically pay down their energy debt by being able to rely more on the solar powered system, and be able to provide like more late night access to light so that the teachers can access light at the school. It's a little bit of a safer environment. The kids aren't experiencing blackouts throughout their days. And that's like a really well scoped, tangible, practical project. That was my one piece of advice. Scope your projects. Keep it simple. My second piece of advice, and this is like going to be kind of a funny one to hear, but I really believe that we need more young people to like want to go into politics.
Definitely.
It's a huge, I think we're so disenfranchised and so disappointed by the elected officials that we've often kind of been landed with, or I think also have had opportunities to kind of participate in, but not all of us are necessarily organizing in the most effective ways. We're so disenfranchised, we feel so disenfranchised and so disappointed that it really demotivates us from like wanting to even explore that as an avenue. But we really need young people in politics. Like we need young people to see whether it's city politics, whether it's like running for a local role, like running for like city council, whether it's running for kind of a local elected official position, all the way up to actually trying to like enact change at a national level. I really want young people to see that as a space where they can make impact. In the countries where that is happening, like the cities where that is happening, we're seeing a lot of very, very, very tangible impact. Like even looking at New York with Mamdani, like he's not necessarily like a categorical youth per se. He is younger. He's a lot younger.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Netherlands, like there's a lot of really great examples where younger folks who have been working in the space for a while in more activist kind of type context or advocacy type context are going into these roles, these positions. Yes, they're making themselves very, very vulnerable. Yes, they're opening themselves up to a lot of criticism and a lot of like polarized debate. And oftentimes, there's the whole like we dismantle our heroes, no people on pedestals kind of approach to our kind of, I guess, leading in this space. But they're doing it anyway, persistently, and they're making real impact. So I want more young people to really see that as something that is important for them to consider. Yeah. And I think that's like universal regardless of where you are. In some contexts, there's more age hierarchy. In some contexts, it's less safe to go into politics. But I think generally that would be my piece of advice.
Amazing. So if I guess it down that focus your trajectory from the initial level, start simple. That's really, I think, for example, also from our side, we see a lot of, I can say that energy practitioners and enthusiasts always comes with different kind of projects and different kind of ideas. But I can see that the problem is not the product, the problem is not the initiations, the problem is where to start. And they start with a bigger thing. But I always say, tell them, whenever you have an idea, just back calculate. Back calculate and you'll see what exactly the point you have to start. You'll get the root cause of that.
Exactly.
And secondly, as you say, to be the change, to change the system, you have to be in the system. And I truly believe that. If you are not in the system, you cannot change a single entity of that perspective as well. So I think that's really a nice idea. But the problem is decomplexifying the situation.
Yeah.
Because it's the entire system is so complex. Most of the youth gets really disoriented what to do, what not to do. Might be a situation we have to decomplexify the entire area. So I spoke about a lot of information right now, but I want to speak about you as personally. What Helen does in Sunday morning.
Probably try and like catch up on some sleep. Sunday morning, I mean, I think like getting outside and interacting with nature is a really healthy way to kind of ground yourself when we're working in very stressful environments and with very like emotionally charged topics. So trying to get yourself outside, get yourself into nature, spending some time with your friends, with your family if you can. Sometimes it's like from afar, a FaceTime call. But getting outside, like, that's a big one for me. I also really love to cook. I don't know, doing something. Yeah, do something like practical, like with your hands. I don't know, I'm a very tactile person. Like I do find that like sitting at a computer and thinking philosophically can like be quite draining. Like I really love to like make art. I love to cook. I love to like be outside walking. I'm a big walker. I love to walk. Yeah, so like, you know, kind of random human things. Nothing too wild and crazy, but
That's right now, like being in like the exchange and this area, you literally want to get some time for yourself.
Exactly.
And we don't give proper time, especially the youth, the burnout.
Yes.
For doing a lot, like they want to change everything within one day.
And we feel so guilty. We feel so guilty if we read something that isn't like related to the topic. And I'm like, just read some fantasy, go read some science fiction, like get yourself out of this world for a bit because the world is heavy and we really need to like give our brains space to kind of recharge. You come back into the work like better and more equipped to stay in it. I do really worry about burnout. I think a lot of us are treating the space like because of the urgency, like it needs to be a sprint. But like it literally is the entire concept of it's a marathon, not a sprint. If you're going to stay in this for the long run, because I used to run a lot of half marathons, like you can't get so motivated by that starting point of the race where everyone's running fast.
Yeah, exactly.
And you push yourself and you go way past your pace and then you're exhausted and you just want to give up and like crash.
And this is how we lose a really fantastic workforce.
Exactly. You know, we're comparing ourselves to people who have like so much more time in the space than we've had, know all the people because they've been in it for 10 years, 20 years. So yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like take those breaths that you need, step away from the space, allow yourself to like shift perspective, shift mindset, shift the state of your mind, and then come back like better equipped to do the work and stay in the work as well.
Any specific books that you recommend to our viewers?
That's such a good question. I'm currently reading the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. It's an incredible series. I've just finished the second book, so no one spoil it for me. There's 5, so I've got a ways to go. And then I've also been reading James Islington's Strength of the Few. I finished Strength of the Few, and I'm about to read Will of the Many? No, I just finished Will of the Many, about to read Strength of the Few. So I'm super excited about those two. Those two are kind of like dystopian science fiction, fantasy-esque. Like they're so good. So I highly recommend. And it allows us to like almost see, like if we are looking at dismantling our system and like many systems of power, what could that look like from the vantage point of like a science fiction or dystopian style world? It helps us to like, I don't know, just kind of look at the spaces that we're
broaden the perspective as well, you know, like it's not just from an energy sector reading you can get the ideas, but over there you can get also emotional questions and intelligent questions as well.
Exactly.
But ending this show, like I think we can have this discussion like long as well. But of course we have to get the time sensitive as well.
Yeah.
But before we close the show, what do you think? What is the difference between last year's LFD and this year's LFD? What do you like about it?
Yeah, well, it's a bigger LFD, which is cool, but it still feels really like intimate and it feels like a community. I think this year's LFD also has more youth, which always makes me happy. What is different between this LFD? I mean, this LFD maybe feels a little bit more like focused, if that makes sense. Like I feel like we're really learning. Like there was a tangible campaign that was launched today, and an invitation for all of us to be part of that. Like that's really exciting. It kind of gives us a clear like next step if any of us are feeling a little uncertain about our next step. I also just think like kind of being faced obviously by the energy crisis that we're in right now. It's a little grounding, and we've kind of gotten past a lot of the like initial shock aspects of the last couple of years of like politics, where I think we kind of know where we're at now. We're in an energy crisis that validates the work that we're doing needs to happen, like the renewable transition needs to happen. They brought in some really great communicator and campaign minds to like learn from and launched a really tangible campaign for us to take forward and be part of. So for me, it feels like I'm coming in here with a bit more focus, but I don't know if that's me or if that's the space. So, but yeah, it's feeling really great.
It's raising focus this year, and also I really love the storytelling part. Like they separated the executives, all the categories as storytelling until tomorrow, and it's so clear what exactly the narratives and what are the information they want to give.
For sure.
So I think we have to like we have to say that this year's LFD is far more like engaging, scaled up from the last year, and we know that it will go more and more next year. But looking forward to next year. Exactly.
Absolutely, it's a great.
And Helen, thanks a lot for being in the show.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor to like have a discussion with you, and thanks GWAC, the entire team as well, to give us the infrastructure and the the place. You can see the lights and stuff. And thanks a lot for the viewers as well to stick with us till now, and we'll come up with another show with another fantastic speaker or guest, as you know that we always connect with them in a further more deeper and the discussion will not go just energy, but also how to implement and how to scale up into your demands and how to do better in your careers as well. So next time we will be together. Since then, goodbye.
Bye. Okay, cool. Oh gosh. Oh, it's videoing. Oh no, I was looking at the ground for half of that. Oh no. Okay, hopefully it wasn't just here. Sarah, get the floor. It's funny. Head over where?
We had 6-0 something years.
Oh, wait, no, that's fine. Cool. Okay. I know, I realized that we were on camera, but like been more, and kept my head
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Okay. So,